Just got back from Brisbane and Fiji a couple of days ago. Things are going great. Got a big week, a really big week this week. Got a strategic planning day on Tuesday, then flying to Brisbane, back to Brisbane where I was a couple of days ago for another strategic planning day. It's going to be a great week. So today's Sunday. Yesterday, Saturday, spent the day wakeboarding for my brother's birthday down in Baldivis, which is a suburb south of Perth. And I'd done water skiing when I was younger at another Perth cable water ski park. But this is the first time I'd done wakeboarding. It was great. Spent an hour on the beginner, how to learn course, then another hour. It was like $55. Highly recommend it to anybody who's in Perth, or if there's a wakeboard course near you. Got to stand up and do quite a few laps. Just had a great day. Today I want to tackle a question that I'm asked all the time. As companies grow, this is the one question that becomes really, really difficult. It's a bit like transitioning from a child to a teenager or a teenager to an adult. It's the tough question when it comes to strategic planning and thinking about how you'll apply strategic planning into your business. How do I create a leadership team? How do I go from a business which was founded by me and transition that over time to have senior managers, and to have those senior managers come together and make decisions on the business? And how do I trust the people, and how do I release the responsibility and accountability so that they're able to make the right decisions for the business, and the business can be more effective and then continue to scale? So imagine you've started a business, it's just yourself or yourself and a partner, and you begin to grow the business. And then over time, you grow the revenues, and eventually you're able to add an employee and then a couple of more employees. And then you grow the revenues more, and eventually you get past 1 million and 2 million. You've got more and more and more employees. And eventually you, to say $3 or $4 or $5 million, maybe you've got 20 or 30 or 50 employees. So you've got a reliable, sizable business that has a lot of people all depending on one or two people, and that is the challenge, is transitioning from that state where an entrepreneur, where every single decision had to go through them and every single responsibility landed on them, transition from that to another business whereby it's the leadership team that does make the decisions and undertakes quarterly planning, because that's everything that I do is quarterly strategic planning, building a 90-day plan with a leadership team. So how do we create that team? Well, the problem is, as a business continues to scale, there's only so much bandwidth that the entrepreneur has, and as they get maxed out for their time, they're not able to continue to scale the business because they can only handle so much. And the people around them have to take responsibility for their various areas and divisions to be able to grow the business and really get it to thrive. Because you really can't get to be a $100 million business where there's one entrepreneur and a whole range of people, maybe hundreds or thousands of people under them. It's just not going to work. So how do we get from being a structure of having a single entrepreneur through to having a leadership team? International best practice tells us that the ideal number of members in a leadership team is between 6 and 8. Any less than 6, and you really don't have the diversity of opinions and perspectives from different areas within the organisation to be able to truly get a balanced perspective. And any more than 8 and it becomes a bit of a talk fest. There's too many things that are happening. So certainly when I help people to establish leadership teams, we're aiming for 6 or 7 or maybe 8. And it doesn't necessarily matter if one person controls a team of 50 people and another person controls a team of 3 people. Diversity within the organisation is really, really, really important to get that kind of output. The second thing is you want to get people who are going to add value to the process. You want to get people who are going to not be a wallflower and sit through a strategic planning session and be quiet the whole time. You really want to get a group of people who will come together and, as Jim Collins puts it, have healthy debate, have a debate where they can honestly and openly challenge each other, with the objective being to get the best result for the company in the end. The average or a typical organisation has about 3 main areas. So that would be selling and or marketing. So people who are all about bringing in leads and revenue. Next is the operations. So operations people are about executing on that revenue or converting that revenue into gross profit that we can turn into cash. And then of course the accounting and administration, which is in effect turning that into cash, turning the work that has been completed and sold into cash through whatever means. Now of course every business is different, but when we consider a leadership team, we want to have people who are from each of those areas in terms of diversity. We want to have some people who are perhaps from marketing and or sales, some people who are from operations, some people who are perhaps from administration, right across the board, so that we're able to get that diversity. And if you've got an enormous sales team or an enormous operations team, in contrast to the other, you still want to get that diversity. You don't want to have a leadership team that's full of people with a sales perspective, and equally you don't want to have a leadership team that's full of people from an operations perspective, because there won't be the balance that you need to correctly develop the strategic priorities for the coming quarter. So the leadership team, you can't effectively sub people in and out all of the time. You should be considering this as a long-term play for ideally many years. Now sure, some people may come and go for a variety of reasons, but when you're establishing the leadership team, your intent should be that this will go for a multitude of years, because these people will learn a lot together. This is a journey where they will not only begin to trust and rely on each other, but they've learnt a whole range of things along the way, just like you probably have as an entrepreneur building this business. So this team, you've got to really ensure that they're long-term people or long-term people within the business. So you've developed who will be in the leadership team. Remember, 6 to 8 people with diversity across the organisation, someone from each area, irrespective of the amount of people they report to. We want to have some diversity, a group of people who will work together and will ideally be here for a long time, and people who will contribute to the process, people who won't sit through strategic planning days simply being a wallflower. So what next? Well, next you need to decide, will you adopt the rhythm that we advocate, and really a lot of people advocate, which is quarterly planning days off-site and annual 2-day strategic planning days off-site. Whether or not it's facilitated or not is a separate question I'll cover in a second, but is that the method that you're going to adopt? Is that the habit? I'm going to use that word instead, the habit that you're going to adopt. Because then, if it is, immediately, as soon as you can, book in all of those days. When I start with a client, that's the very first thing that I do. Let's plan out the actual dates of all of the quarterly and annual planning sessions in the next 12 months and lock them in, so that we know that's there, we know what we've got to do, and we're simply working towards that. So once we've got that, we have locked in our quarterly and our annual planning days, then the question becomes, well, who will facilitate the company's planning session? Now, you really effectively have two options. You either facilitate the planning session yourself, or you get an external person to do it. Now, clearly this is what I do. I'm just going to flag that this is a slight conflict, but you can use myself or a person like myself. There are many people that do this kind of thing. Let's get back to you. If it's yourself, you need to simply understand the pitfalls and the challenges. You need to understand the planning component. So I've got a blog article that I've written about this, who should facilitate the company's planning session. I'm going to put that in the links below so that you can have a look at that. But effectively it comes down to, you can't get people to have healthy debate when they're complicit with you, because you're their boss. So they will be saying, well, I'll just do whatever you want in this day, and ultimately we're going to come back to what you want anyway. Now, that's especially so if, as per the beginning of this video, you've come from a small business that you've founded over time to get to the point where you now have this need to create a leadership team. So these people will inherently be complicit with what you want to achieve. And if you go in, or you're an A-type personality, and what you want to do is start a new office in a new city or something like that, they're just going to agree with that. On the other hand, a facilitator will come in and will look for healthy debate, and will try to create healthy debate, and will be looking to ask questions, to challenge and to go deeper and to really get the optimal. One of the things that we say is we want to look for disagree and commit. So you may disagree during a strategic planning session with what all of the other members say, but we want to commit to the successful execution. That's part of a healthy team. And so the next is, you can't participate and facilitate simultaneously. In other words, if you're thinking about why is that person paying attention, or what's coming up next, or how can I make this work, often the CEO is the one who knows the most about the business, is certainly one of the smartest in the room, and they're not getting into that white space of thinking, trying to really solve problems and get into a creative space. So if you're facilitating, you're not able to be a participant. It's a very different role. And then thirdly is that when you're standing at the front of the room telling people, it's very hard for employees or subordinates to challenge that. Anyway, there's an article in the comments below that you can look at. So that's briefly how you build a leadership team, or how you go from simply doing everything yourself without maybe a rhythm to defining who are the people that you need, and how do you build this into your business. So number one, you need to have 6 to 8 people. There needs to be diversity, and these people need to not be a wallflower. They need to engage and be ready to challenge and argue in a healthy way. Also, we need to have these people as, let's say, longer term people, or people that will be here for a period of time, we believe, in the business, and we need to commit to a framework. We've got a framework of daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual. So the offsites are really the quarterly and the annual meetings, where then you're able to simply spend 1 day or 2 days offsite doing strategic thinking and execution planning, and then you can do 12.9 weeks of executing on that plan without all of the distractions that normally go with what a business who isn't in a disciplined framework tends to suffer. So that's it. That's how you create a leadership team in a really simple explanation, and how you're able to build that into your business.
Like a map with no ocean.